came here to learn about, yep, thanks. We came here to learn more about, these different tools that you can use to really turn a startup into a company. And so there's this whole idea of like, what is a company and what is a startup? Are they the same? Are they different? And I just wanted to really put it out there that, a company is an organization which sells a product or service and gets money for it. However, startup is not doing that yet, right? So a startup is a temporary organization designed to search out for a business model in order to become a company. So there's different activities of what a startup does and a company does. So again, Steve Blank, came up with this, that startups are not just small versions of big companies. So it's not just like, oh, we're selling products. We are still in the search phase. And here is like, for instance, a customer development process. So again, doing customer discovery and validating this, maybe pivoting what your product or your service is going to be. Then eventually you'll be able to get to the point of, creating customers and building your company. But so that being said, the business model canvas is one of those tools to guide you, to provide a roadmap of how a startup can become a company, or if it's a viable option to become a company. So again, many of you are probably exposed to the BMC through iCore, but the idea is that your whole business plan is going to fit on one sheet of paper. Gone are the times of 30, 50 plus pages of business plans where you do all of this research and you write down all these financials and you put all these assumptions in on how you're going to be profitable and make money. And then people just set those aside and never change it. Of course, things are always evolving and you're always learning new things, especially through customer discovery. So to just write down the core ideas about what your business plan is really important. And now you can use this to pivot and change assumptions as you do more testing. So again, what is a business model? It's how a company creates value for itself by delivering products to their customers or services. So we want to make sure it's viable. You're going to create some money for you, and it's going to cost, or it's going to be more than what it costs. And all of the things in order to create this value for your customer. So here's a empty business model canvas. And as you may have learned in Bay Area iCore, that really the first two fields and the most important ones to start with, and I haven't listed 1 and 2, but they're really hand in hand, are your value propositions and your customer segments. From there, you can go into channels and customer relationships and all of the rest of the fields. And I wanted to also highlight here, there's really a distinction between the right and the left side of the business model canvas. The right side is the value and what you're delivering to your customer and what problems you're solving, and the money you're going to be getting. And then on the left side is really, how do you create that value? How do you create that product? And how much is that going to cost? So, but the business model canvas is really just a set of guesses. And then you need to go out and test those guesses. And once you test them, if you hypotheses, guesses, whatever you want to call it, you talk to more and more people. If you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, these kind of turn into facts and answers for your guesses. So it's all about talking to a lot of different people and doing the customer discovery. So again, you make these hypotheses, you start somewhere, and you go out and talk to people. Lots of the times they're wrong. And so you iterate and you pivot what your product may be, or iterate even what the product may change, but what is it, the problem that you're solving, and what value are you giving to your customer? So again, it's all about talking to customers. I'm sure Dave Weiner did a great job of talking about customer discovery in his talk the last workshop. But really, identifying all types of people who would be potential customers. And you have to think of the whole ecosystem. So yes, the user is important. I would say the decision maker is the most important. Who's going to decide to buy your product? Of course, a payer needs to be on board too. But everyone in this ecosystem, anyone that recommends a product, influencer, and maybe, someone who's the saboteur, all of those people are customers, and you need to be able to provide a value proposition to each of those customers. Even the saboteur, there's ways to find value that you can deliver and wording that you can deliver to the saboteur that will make them want to jump on board as well. So I'm going to go through basically all the fields of the BMC, just to kind of get a sense of it. I am happy to, I have actually other people's like more in-depth ideas. If you ever have any questions on any of these fields, there's more in-depth slides I can send along. But the value proposition, it's definitely starts, it's not about what your product does or the technology behind it, but what is it solving? Is it solving a problem or a need? So what's this value to your customer? So it's, again, it has nothing to do with technology and the underlying technology, but all about the value that it's making it cheaper for your customer, it's making it faster for your customer, etc. And again, the solution is not the first important part, because if you ask people about what they want, you're not going to get the right answer. So you need to talk to customers about what their problems are and how they go about their daily lives and what is really bothering them or slowing them down. And again, hand in hand goes customer segment. So this, who is your customers? So your customers don't exist just to buy your product. You are creating value for them. So why would they buy your product? Who are they? You know, what are the problems that they have? What decision-making skills do they have? You know, what's influencing them? Again, all the different customer segments. And really hone in on who that main customer is that's going to decide to buy your product, and try to really identify everything about them. For instance, and here's an example of a consumer customer ecosystem. Let's say there's a teenager here who wants to buy a new phone. You know, he might have a friend that recommends one phone over another. There's other influencers out there that, you know, for other reasons. But, you know, he may not be the decision maker. It's probably definitely not the economic buyer. Those are his parents. And, you know, perhaps there's a saboteur. Like, let's say, you know, grandma's like, a teenager doesn't need a phone. There's, again, still ways that you could say, but there's value even to the saboteur to say that this teenager does need a phone. So all of these people kind of play in the decision-making of buying a product. Same goes for a company. So if you're selling, you know, if you're selling a product to a company, you need to understand the whole ecosystem. Who's using it, who's buying it, who's deciding. So those are probably so again, those are the most important parts, but I do want to just briefly explain what these other fields are, the BMC. So number 3 is channels. How will you deliver value to your customer? So the channels can be virtual or they can be physical. There's like, you know, e-commerce or app store, you know, Amazon or something like that. But, you know, more often than not, there's physical channels. So, you know, direct sales, or you could be you know, going to a reseller, someone else, you know, is selling it in a retailer. There's often you are OEM, which is original equipment manufacturer, which basically you're selling a product that they'll incorporate to another hardware. So just, again, understanding these channels of how your product gets from your company to your customer. And then, of course, there's the customer relationships. So really, it's about how do you get your customers, how do you keep them, and how do you grow them. So you may be, you know, you may get your customers from doing trade shows. There might be, you know, again, it depends upon your product and your channel too, what that relationship looks like. You may keep them by, you know, adding on features, new exciting features that keep them really interested in your product. And you may grow your customer base by, you know, going into new indications and stuff like that. But just, again, how do you have this relationship with your customer? How do you get, keep, and grow? And then from there, you have a revenue model. And so what are your customers willing to pay? And what is this value? And so And again, revenue models can be direct sales, they can be subscription models. So there's a strategy behind it. And then there's also pricing. And again, when you come to pricing, a lot of it can be dictated on competitor pricing. So you need to do that type of customer discovery work, but also just, the value your product has. Of course, you can do a cost-based pricing, but that's not very strategic. And it's usually much better to do a value-based pricing model where if they use your product, they're going to get a lot more value than what they have to pay for it, but you're still making money on your end. So that's the right-hand side. The left-hand side of the BMC is what people say is behind the curtain. It's what makes the right-hand side possible, and what it costs to make your product. So quickly, key activities. What do you need to do? What technology do you need to build? Do you need to, acquire supplies and stuff like that? What work needs to be done? Do you have to create a software? Do you have to create, algorithms? Do you have to create hardware? Do you have to physically make something? And then the key resources is what key assets do you need to make that product? What do you have to have? Do you have to have the right personnel? Do you have to have enough money to pay those people and to buy, other supplies? Do you need intellectual property? Again, what supplies and resources do you need to create a full product? And then key partnerships. So who must be there to help you to make that product and provide value? So you may not be able to do everything in-house. And so what partners will help you get the key resources? What partners will help you do all of the key activities is important. For instance, almost everyone here, the UCSF Innovation Ventures is a key partner in order to license intellectual property. That will be the foundation of your company. So just as an example. And then all of these things on this left-hand side come at a cost. So understanding what it's going to cost to create a product and be able to sell a product is important. And your revenues eventually must outweigh your costs. Otherwise, it's not a viable company. So after you do all of that customer discovery work and fill in all of those fields of the BMC, that's considered you have a product market fit. So again, I'm sure Dave went over this, but National NSF I-Core is a great way to do the full business model canvas and test out all of your hypotheses. You need to do the regional in advance, but then with the exception of if you are NIH SBIR awardee, so let's say especially for a therapeutic, they have a national I-Core program for those awardees as well. But on the NSF side, the national is a 7 weeks long, $50,000 grant. Every startup should be going through this customer discovery work, so why not get paid to do it? But I do warn you, it's very, very time intensive. So definitely choose a time that you can step away from your other responsibilities a bit. And I will say, as being a NSF SBIR reviewer, I've seen it time and time again. For those teams who have had I-Core experience and talk about their customer discovery, it goes a long way in getting that SBIR funding. So it's a good strategic, not only for you and your company, but also for follow-on funding as well. So, okay, how much time do I have? 7 minutes. So quickly transitioning. So again, the BMC has a lot of overlap with the TPP, but some fields are different. So I think that they go, they're very complementary to each other. And then you can take, basically, there's this idea of a pitch deck, right? This is another tool that entrepreneurs use to communicate their ideas to outsiders and usually some investor. So the goal is to convince someone that there's a problem to be solved. It's a huge problem. And then you and your team, your solution are the best way to solve it. And you're going to be able to make some money on it. So that's the goal of a pitch deck. So like I said, kind of take target product profile ideas, take your customer discovery that you've done, take this business model canvas, and all of this can go in creating a pitch deck. And here is a sample format for these slides. And again, 10 slides is good. 10 or so slides is about good for that 5-minute pitch. Like Charles had alluded to, there could be different amounts. But 5 minutes is a very typical, 5 or 10 minutes if you want to get a little bit more in depth on the science. But here's an example. Again, you start out with a logo, name of your company, maybe a tagline as a landing page. Then you really need to start with a hook. So you have to, one, know your audience of who you're talking to, but hook them in with an emotion. It could be a personal story of why this means so much to you. It could be a surprising fact, etc. For instance, you can often flash up a picture and talk about how, 40% of medical students suffer from insomnia due to their crazy schedules or something like that. And then you can go in and talk a little bit more in depth on the problem. Talk about this customer discovery you've done. Having real data and quotes is very good to talk about. Again, 25% of Americans suffer from insomnia. This is unsolved, unmet medical need, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can talk about the business opportunity. I'm sure you've already been working on your TAM, SAM, SOM. So, a great place to talk about what the size of the market is. But there can also be other things that can go into this space, like kind of the financial value that your product could have to your customer. For instance, if like our product that we're developing for pediatric trauma specifically, if people use our product and build for it, it's about $1 billion of reimbursement, of insurance reimbursement that could go to the hospital systems. So stats like that are good to have here. Of course, you need to talk about your solution, but make it count, make it easy, succinct. Any sort of mock-ups, diagrams, videos. Of course, you have to talk about where you are in development versus where you hope this product will eventually go to. But showing a prototype goes a long way. Definitely important to talk about your target market and understand the difference between the user and the decision maker and everyone in your ecosystem, in your customer discovery ecosystem. Of course, it's important to acknowledge competitive landscape. Charts are worthwhile like this. You can have features and different companies and how yours is great and theirs doesn't cover everything. But of course, this is also a place to acknowledge that, competition is not necessarily a bad thing. The fact that there's competition out there means that other people are trying to solve what's a real need out there. And competitors are often there's a potential for competitors to actually be partners as well. So it's not necessarily to just say how you're better than others, but just how you fit in the whole competitive landscape and ecosystem. Of course, it's important to talk about how you're going to make money. So the strategy, your subscription model for $25,000 a year, and you're going to have this many customers, et cetera, et cetera. So again, can you borrow assumptions from competitors? A lot of that will come out of that business model canvas revenue stream field. And then a go-to-market strategy. How do you get, keep, and grow your customers? And then lastly, you should have a compelling closing about why your product is awesome, but also you need to talk about your team, because investors are investing in teams and not necessarily technology. So the idea is important, but literally to get it over the hurdle and make it a success, it's about 99% of the team's execution. So here's my co-founders, for instance. It's the old slide, but we all have varying complementary skill sets that we bring. And of course, we don't cover everything. So any sort of advisory board and people like that are supporting you as well is important. So that is what I have. So I made it in a half an hour too.
Hey, that was any questions for Jenny before we move to the second talk? That was really good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Just if you have a question, yeah, there you go. Now I can see it.
But no worries. Like I said, feel free to follow up with me if you have any further questions. I'm happy to dive deeper into any of those fields too, and send over some other slides and more in-depth slides as well.
Wait, actually, I have a question. I want to say, I know it's been a while, but back in the day, what was very, very popular was this concept of a business plan. And I actually helped, well, it doesn't even matter, but they could be like, I don't know, like 50 pages long. And you're describing this BCP as a single page. So how did the business plan document evolve to this business model canvas document?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes out of the realization that, the business plan, you can make assumptions, but if you're making an assumption and then that's proven wrong later, the whole thing goes out the window. And so you put a lot of work into making, this 30, 50 page document. Again, it used to be very financial heavy, but it's been shown that, kind of the back of the envelope, financial calculations are close enough to, what people need to understand. So of course, in all of these fields in the business, I don't want to give the hint that like the BMC is super simple or easy, because no doubt in each of these fields, like there can be in-depth, the cost of acquiring a customer, lots of math behind all that type of stuff too that can be done. So it can get very in-depth, but I think the idea is just that Steve Blank came up with, is that you need to be more nimble. You need to be able to pivot when you're proven wrong, and all of these fields affect each other. So if one thing changes, you need to be able to reassess all of the fields at the same time.
Got it. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Geeta.
I mean, one of the slides you had on the customer, what you call the customer, and you had a really nice sort of concept there of the ecosystem. Do you want to say a few words about specifically the ecosystem for a medical device or a pharma company that's targeted for this group of people?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can talk from my own experience of what I found, for instance, as an example. But like I said, we're creating an AI-led ultrasound software. Ultimately, every single emergency physician will be the user, but everyone in the emergency department is not deciding to buy it or not. So who is deciding? Who is the decision maker? And that decision maker for us is the ultrasound director. They decide what products, what ultrasound hardware comes in, what the workflow is for the hospital and stuff like that. So they're the decision maker, and they're the ones that we really do need to sell to. Of course, the hospital, the CFO of the hospital is going to be your buyer. They're going to have to sign off on it. So you need to make sure that their return on investment is going to be, worthwhile to the hospital, as much as, the decision maker may want it because it's going to make their lives easier. You also have to show the return on investment side for the buyer. But again, and then there's the saboteur, in our case, that would be potentially the radiologist and the radiology department. They typically, for instance, what I'm trying to do is make ultrasound more accessible to emergency physicians. That might take away some of their business, and they might be scared about that. So understanding how they're feeling about your business and coming in is crucial. And what I found as an example is that radiologists are really worried about the quality and communication of around a patient. And so me being able to sell how my product will enhance the quality of the care for the patient is important, and integrating into their PAC system, and just showing how the communication lines from emergency department to radiology is important. So again, it's a saboteur isn't always a bad.
Would they be influencers then?
Yeah. What was that?
ER docs, the ones who are actually going to use it, would they be influencers?
Influencers, yeah, they're influencers. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my ideal is that, people coming out of their emergency residency from UCSF, they have experience with my product. They're going to go into their new job and be an influencer and say, hey, I used to use this, during my residency. we should use it here now too. So,
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks again, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure enough. Now it's my pleasure to turn over to Nate Prorock. Take it away, Nate.
Thanks, Charles. Yes, my name is Nate Prorock. I'm the director of the Launchpad. I used to do that a lot with Jenny, and now I'm happy to carry the flag through all the great work that we started. So you guys will hear that more. The other hat that I wear is the Senior Program Manager of the Catalyst Program. And I'm really excited to share with you all the content regarding student and trainee entrepreneurship and innovation, specifically like several resources, programs, and activities. So the UCSF Launchpad started in 2019, and it came from, well, let's take a more step back. You may recall that when you applied to this internship, all of you applied on Startup Tree, and it was co-branded between the UCSF Catalyst Program and the UCSF Launchpad. And you've learned a lot about the Catalyst Program and have dug really deep into the TPP fields for this year's Catalyst awardees. But we haven't spoken too much about the Launchpad until today. The Launchpad was founded at UCSF and the other UCs in August 2019 from a grant from the Blackstone Charitable Foundation. The Launchpad supports and promotes the entrepreneurial mindset, process, and tools in students and trainees, regardless of career path. And this includes all of you. And one way to think of this entrepreneurial mindset is that no matter what you end up dedicating your careers to, the mindset of asking questions, making observations, understanding a situation, and problem solving will all be invaluable, no matter what you're doing. And the Blackstone Launchpad Network makes entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial activities accessible and all the skills relevant for you guys in ways that make sense to you for all students and trainees to really help you guys build thriving companies and careers. We host many events, competitions, workshops, as well as lots of mentorship and coaching. There's quite a variety of schools in this network in addition to the aforementioned University of California campuses, including the University of Texas system, the State University of New York system, many HBCUs, and standalones like USC and Cornell. In total, right now, there are 64 schools with over 1 million students that have access to the Launchpad Network. The Launchpad Network has put on over 5,000 events, and over $40 million has been committed by the Blackstone Charitable Foundation to the Launchpad over the next 5 years. We have a strong history of major programming at UCSF and, throughout the Bay Area and beyond. So Jenny touched on this, how, we started really from absolutely nothing with this grant. And we really gained a lot of steam in May of 2019 when we did the UCSF COVID-19 hackathon. From there, we really started to understand what students were looking for, what kind of skills they wanted to develop, what kind of projects they wanted to work on. So we continued to further that with the startup weekends to really equip students and trainees with the skills to really start a business in a very short amount of time. We've done career fairs. We've had lots of guest speakers come in, and we've even done ideas competitions to really continue for these students to submit their ideas, get valuable feedback, oftentimes even get some cash and some funds to pursue their ideas. And what you're seeing on the screen now is an example of our general schedule. We'll kind of I touched on some of these, but this is just a way to kind of think of our annual programming. The fireside chats that we've done, the career fairs, entrepreneurial boot camps, all sorts of different crash courses, as well as this fellowship here, or internship. And, there are also activities that we do year-round, mixers, startup tree, we talked about Bay Area, I-Core a bunch, lots of different coaching and mentoring opportunities. We have a really cool resource with Amazon Web Services. So if you guys ever are in need of AWS credits, please let me know. And, another thing that we're really trying to get off the ground and hopefully come fall are these micro internships. And it's a short-term, flexible, paid and professional opportunity for students, trainees, while you're going to class, while you're doing your postdoc or residency, to gain some experience with industry. And this is done through Parker Dewey. The projects will be open to all college students, recent graduates, from directly working with an entrepreneur to supporting a large enterprise. Students will get the opportunity to really explore different roles with the company, get a sense of the company culture in such a way that it matches with their schedule. So we kind of talked about this a little bit before, how really from 2019 to now, we started so small from nothing and are really building this great student, postdoc, and trainee community here at UCSF. Now I want to quickly touch on some of the projects that have come out of the Launchpad. One of them was this AirPods. You're familiar with those, the headphones for Apple products that can be used to detect concussive forces and then notify your user. So think of, if you guys remember, I think it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, Bob Saget, the actor from Full House and America's Funniest Home Videos, he hit his head hard and he thought, oh, I hit my head hard, I'm just going to rest it off and go to sleep. He didn't wake up in the morning, but if he had his AirPods in and this app was enabled, due to the accelerometers inside these AirPods, the user, Bob Saget in this case, would have been notified that you've had a concussive blow. Please follow these next steps, whether that's monitoring or going to an ER, et cetera, et cetera. And these could have lots of potential uses, from people who are driving and have an AirPod in their ear and they're an offender bender, a biker. There's been talk of putting these in different football and soccer players so that they can detect the concussive forces there. Another really cool one was an app that combined a bunch of personal health info with environmental data, including the weather, how the COVID infection rate was going, smoke patterns possibly, to give the individual user a possible health and risk score for what's happening. You see the other two I'll quickly touch on. So, all sorts of kinds of Launchpad student projects that really start at the early stage. These are not commercially available yet, but really, your imagination is really the only barrier here, and we're here to help you where you're at and develop it along that path. So you may be thinking now that you're wrapping up the Catalyst internship and what specific opportunities and resources are available to me. So the first thing that I would do is recommend you to become involved with the UCSF Startup Tree. This is the exact website that you guys use to apply for Catalyst, for the Catalyst internship. When we have different events, whether it's a hackathon or a speaker series, we will put it on there. And there are several other campuses that you guys can access what's going on in their network. So you see this toggle here, there's UCSF. Then if you toggle over to global, you'll see all the different schools that have a UCSF startup tree, and you'll be able to participate and engage in all sorts of different activities there. Bay Area NSFI Core. We've talked about this so much. Jenny gave a great highlight on it. And we had David Weiner come and speak even more. But I'm going to put it in here in the slide deck so that you guys, have his email, you have a way to connect with them. The next one's coming up August 21st, 23rd, and 28th. And the deadline for that is about a week from Friday. Another program that I want to highlight is Nucleate. Nucleate is a student-led organization that represents the largest global community of bioinvestors. Some of their goals are to recognize and inspire scientific trainees working on high potential research, provide education and tools for biotech talent, both student scientists and business students, to start new ventures, and to spark new intellectual communities and bridge together existing communities across the life sciences. Berkeley Skydeck is another really cool resources, and they have, many resources out there that I encourage you guys to explore. I'll touch on the accelerator program, and the focus is really defining and refining the product design and go-to-market growth strategy. This helps you identify and recommend different people who could be part of your team, whether it's early hires or an advisory board. And Skydeck is such an amazing network that they really help facilitate introductions to stakeholders and influencers in your field. Another one is the Life Sciences Entrepreneurship Center, set out of Berkeley. They like to refer to this as a center of centers. And this resource kind of connects a lot of the last few. Berkeley Skydeck, Nucleate is really part of it, NSF Core, obviously. And so it's designed as this first of its kind center of centers that fosters life sciences, entrepreneurship, and a coordination segment between building on all the UC resources so that it's a first stop for anyone within the UC community of life sciences who are curious about what's the next best path forward for them. And some of the key features of the Life Sciences Entrepreneurship Center are hands-on training and landscaping new technologies and an introduction to due diligence and innovation sourcing, assisting would-be startup founders navigate the best path to success using the myriad of resources available, and helping founders move from concept to company. So again, that idea of the translational path, idea to product. And then something else that I'm really excited to talk more about is that this fall, probably around October, we'll do the call for this, is the third iteration of the iHack Health Appathon. We've done this the last 2 years with Apple, the UC Berkeley Fung Institute, where UCSF PIs, UCSF idea generators who see an issue in healthcare, they've made an observation, and they're like, you know what? I feel like I have a solution to that. So we team up with Apple, we get a bunch of devices to them and to other people who want to participate on it. The Fung Institute comes in and provides a lot of engineering support so that these ideas, similar to many of them that I talked about before, the AirPods and the health app based on weather, those came from the Appathon. And there are many programs that started here in the iHack Appathon that applied to Catalyst and eventually got funding and are now some of the projects that you guys are working on. So more information to come on this, but we're really excited. And please stay tuned for more information, probably come mid-fall on that one. And finally, I want to give a plug to the Global Life Sciences Healthcare Entrepreneurship course. I noticed that Stephanie Maris is on the call here. And Stephanie, if you want to hop in, say anything briefly about the course. If not, totally fine. I put the link in here and folks will be able to navigate to the link and learn more and express their interest.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nate, for the opportunity to give a quick overview. This is a course for people who actually want to start companies, and we welcome everybody to join. It is fee-based, and we have people from all over the world in this class. The registration deadline is September 6th. We are going to be doing a briefing about it on August 9th at 9 a.m., trying to figure out which of the time zones I'm in. And we welcome you to just take a look through that link at what this is all about. It's the basics of starting a company and taught by Silicon Valley practitioners. So that's a quick overview. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Stephanie. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I mentioned that the Launchpad does a bunch of coaching and mentorship. So if you guys have questions on, projects that you're working on, feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to connect and, really help you guys flesh out that idea and to connect you with resources. And with that, I'll end, and I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Nate and Stephanie. If there's any questions for Jenny or Nate or Stephanie, that would be fine. If there's any questions on any other topics, like regarding the TPPs right now, plans for their finalization and then presentation of the advisors, those are fine too. And that'll be great if there are. If there aren't, that's fine as well. So I'll just wait for another few seconds.
Charles, do you think it would be helpful if we
I have a question.
Go ahead, Woody.
My question would be, if we've had difficulty contacting one of our colleagues, as far as like maybe they're not participating anymore, do we reach out to Dr. Shah Sohaila for that, or
Yeah. So
any
if
advice?
Sohaila, yeah, thanks for that question, Woody. Yeah, if Sohaila is the Catalyst staffer that's helping you and your fellow interns, reach out to Sohaila. But thanks for the question, Woody.
I was just going to thank Nathan and Jenny for their talks today. They were probably two of the first faces that I recognized Catalyst with when I pitched to the Catalyst program. And those were just fantastic talks to understand the ecosystem here. It's almost like so diverse with Berkeley and UCSF and all these programs, and they're all similar and different. And maybe down the line, there's ways to make it into one kind of group program. I'm sure there's pros and cons, like Jenny was saying, and everything. And sometimes overlapping is good because you learn the same thing in different ways and slightly different perspectives. And other times it's so confusing. You can be going around from program to program and never actually working on your product or your business. And so I think there was so much potential. I mean, there's so much there already, but there's also so much potential for synergy. So it'd be fun to learn more about each of the programs in even more detail and down the line. But anyways, thanks for this great opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And I think that was the problem that they noticed when, to use some of Jenny's wording, problem that they noticed for the solution that ended up becoming the Life Sciences Entrepreneurship Center at Berkeley. Of all these different disparate resources, people were trying different things, spinning their wheels, whereas now this center really tries to help navigate and steer folks to the right resources based off of where they are. Whether it's, oh, you need mentorship, okay, great. Oh, you need funding, okay, great. And really try and like make, all these disparate entities greater than the sum of their parts. But,
Which one did you say again, Nate? Which one was the center one that kind of was the quarterback?
Yeah, Life Sciences Entrepreneurship Center, LSEC. And I'll put the link in chat.
So we think that's sort of the central point, maybe. Because and sometimes it's about branding also, because I think about, gosh, UCSF has it's such an amazing sprawl across the Bay Area, and Stanford has BioDesign X, which is such a catchy brand, and UCSF could be something like a Health X or Health Design X or Health Design Z. I don't know what letters, another cool letter. So like UCSF Health Designs with a Z or something, and sort of just pull it all together, something, and just be fun to see if that's interesting for. I mean, obviously you guys here have been doing it forever. I've only been at UCSF 11 months, so I'm just still learning.
So let me just add to that, Alexander. The problem is we're all in entrepreneurship, and that means we all start things. And so that's why there are just lots of little pockets of starting different things, like, oh, here's a thing we could do. So it's probably not going to all be beautifully integrated. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It makes it a little harder to navigate, but at least you have lots of choices. And, we don't have an LSEC, the group that Nate just described. It doesn't exist at UCSF. So you just have to look at the different pockets and see what is appealing.
And it's also, I'll say, it's also good to have various resources as you go throughout the journey. It's, sometimes when you're starting, you need help in one area, and then you go a little bit further, and then there's another resource that's available.
Well, it was great to hear everything, and I've met many of you, but hopefully to keep meeting more in person. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Yeah, Kaylee just made a nice comment about career paths, and so great. If there's no more further questions, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I especially want to thank Jenny and Nate for their presentations. And we'll see most of you next month when the TPPs are presented by the Catalyst summer interns to the Catalyst intern advisors. So thank you all very much. Bye-bye.